So I know I haven't been showing a ton of build videos lately. I kind of just described the process after it got put together. And some of that is just because, it takes time to set things up to start filming. I'm in the middle of it. And sometimes also it's because the build plan changes throughout the build. And so I just don't end up, doing that kind of video that kind of introduces the build and tells you what's going on. But in this case, I have time. I thought I'd go ahead and do it. So what I've got here is an SJ MK18 from zenduatoys.com. So that's that CJUN MK18. Nice blaster out of the box. I've upgraded the spring in it. It should be about 300 FPS right now. So I think that'll be pretty cool. Now this one did have a really nice long handguard on here. This was not super easy to get off the first time just because I wasn't exactly sure. But like you remove these screws and then this piece slides forward and off. So that helps. And then you've got some other different screws you're going to have to remove around the collar there that attaches it, right? So that's definitely one that takes a little bit to get off the first time. All right, so you can see the handguard I put on here. So what I did is I removed all the rails and then I wanted to print those separately so that we could it makes it a nice, easier way to do different colors. And I wanted to incorporate this design here. This is the Daniel Defense style. I guess it's the pattern that they use on all their stuff because I had this Daniel Defense stock right there. And I thought that would be cool to be able to incorporate that into the blaster since we're going to use that stock. So I've got the different rails, obviously the side rails right here, and then the bottom rail. These are just stabilizer pieces that will go inside the actual handguard. They'll slide down, they'll get pushed in. And then this piece is again a stabilizer piece, but then I basically made it a smaller version of the end of this because this will be the piece that is kind of pushed in flush to right here. So thought that would look cool, just kind of a way to, incorporate that visor back in. Got a recessed fake suppressor. This obviously needs to get sanded and cleaned up and painted, but that will go on and then it will, you can see the threads are actually about in the middle of the suppressor there. Up top, going to go with something I thought this was something cool to try. Went ahead, right, printed a riser. Again, got that Daniel Defense design right there. So that's going to sit on top right here. The rail's going to fall off. So I'm just going to take it off. Whoop. So this will sit right on top up here. And then you've got your canted rail out to the side. So that's where the standard sight is going to go, some type of optic up top here. And then again, a canted rail will go out here for that standard sight as well. Now, one thing with this stock is if we look at the standard buffer tube that comes on it, it's got this piece right here that definitely blocks certain stocks from fitting, okay? So if you've got that flat piece on the end. So this buffer tube is one that came from EMERBUtoys.com. EMERBU has buffer tube stocks, grips now. So I went ahead with that one because if you see here, it doesn't have that, right? And that's what I needed. And then since it matched, it worked out really nice with this Daniel Defense stock from EMERBU as well. So that was just something to point out because you do run into that sometimes where you go to put a slide of stock on and it won't slide on because of that piece right there. And no matter how high you try to raise that pin, it's not going to fit on that stock. In fact, you can see it's even struggles a little bit to get onto the standard stock. You got to give it a good push. Other thing I was just going to touch on was the paints I use because occasionally those get asked about. And again, I haven't talked about them for a while. So this is something I really like now. This is a textured finish spray paint, and this one is the Krylon version. I like this better than there's a Rust-Oleum version, but it's oil-based, or it's an enamel-based. It just takes a lot longer to dry, a lot longer to touch. So I like the Krylon one better, and it's actually a little less expensive to go with this. Comes in multiple colors, but that puts some texture on it. So if you can kind of see here, it puts a little bit of texture on these. These are going to get painted this color, which is an ultra matte kind of desert tan type color. And I really like these Rust-Oleum Ultra Matte, Ultimate Ultra Matte colors are what I use a lot. There's maybe a half dozen different colors that I use from this. But I kind of use this textured finish as a primer. It does a nice job of covering up any 3D printer imperfections. You still may need to do some sanding and stuff, but it adds just a little bit of enough texture where it doesn't look weird. It doesn't look like when I've tried to use some of the spray and bed liner, which works great for like grips, something like that, but that lays down a really heavy texture that takes a long time to dry. This just works a lot better. So if I could ever get Krylon or Rust-Oleum to send me free spray paint, that would be great, because I always spend lots of money on spray paint. But anyway, that gives you an idea of the paints I use. Sorry, that was probably a little too in-depth on that, but some people ask, and these work really good. So I would go with a textured finish. If you're going to leave it black, that's fine. Just hit it with the textured finish, and then you can hit it with a regular black or just leave it with that alone. And then I use the Ultra Matte if I'm going to color on top of it. It also just really seems to help the paint cover a lot better, just I think because there's a lot more for the paint to grab onto when it has that texture. So something to consider. All right, so check back. We'll get this all put together, done up nice. I got to finish some painting on those risers, and then make sure that I'm patient and let it dry really good, and then put it all together and show you. All right, so again, we got the SJ MK18 from ZenDuoToys.com, the Daniel Defense stock, and the metal buffer tube from EMERBU Toys, which is either at EMERBUToys.com or you can find a lot of their stuff on Amazon too. All right, thanks. Comments, questions, post them below. Of course, like, subscribe, share my channel with your friends, and participate in those monthly giveaways.